Hamilton, Montana. Population less than 5,000. Everyone here knows the Larsen sisters. Identical twins, 27 years old. Genetically, one person in two bodies. Coincidence to the birthmark on the left collarbone. But the town distinguishes them unmistakably. June is the beautiful one. Emmy is the smart one. In the interrogation protocols of the neighbors, the phrase is repeated 8 times, literally. The morning of the day of disappearance, the surveillance camera of the Early Bird Cafe captures the sisters at 9:12, the last joint record. On the video, both are packing backpacks, laughing. The goal is Blodgett Canyon, an annual sisterly hike on her birthday. A tradition that is 7 years old. The route is standard. Ascent to the observation point, a bottle of champagne at the top, descent at dusk. Then, a reconstruction based on the case materials. June's car was recorded in the parking lot near the entrance to the canyon at 10:40. Witnesses from the opposite trail saw the sisters on the ascent. The last contact of Emmy's phone with the base station was at 13:40. After that, silence. According to June's testimony, at the top they drank champagne from one bottle, which she poured herself. On the way down, she walked first, with Emmy behind her at a distance of 10 to 15 meters. At some point, June turned around. The trail behind her was empty. The emergency call was made at 17:03. The operator notes, "The woman cannot finish a sentence. Her breathing breaks every third word, and she repeats her sister's name 3 times. The arriving rangers find June in the parking lot. According to the report, a hoarse voice, palms wrapped to blood, pupils do not focus on the interlocutor. She managed to run the trail 3 times in both directions, alone, in the dark. The search operation unfolds the next morning. 300 volunteers, a helicopter from Missoula with a thermal imager. Ravalli County mountaineers comb the scree under the viewpoint. A fall from there gives a predicted search area for the body. The area is empty. The sinologists lead the trail from the top down the path and lose it on the rocky section. The dogs circle, lie down, refuse to work. A week, nothing. The second week, nothing. Neither bodies, nor things, nor bloodstains. In mountain searches, there is an unwritten rule. The living are found in the first 72 hours. Further, they search for remains. On the 14th day, the operation is officially transferred to passive mode. The mother of the sisters is going completely grey this month. A fact that journalists of the local newspaper are recording at a family press conference. June sits motionless at the same conference, her gaze fixed at a point above the cameras. She doesn't answer questions. And in the office of the sheriff of Ravalli County, a photograph from the search site lies on the table. Emmy's backpack, found on the 3rd day. And something in this shot makes the sheriff put aside all other cases. A photograph of a backpack. The sheriff of Ravalli County has been studying it for 4 hours straight. The problem isn't the backpack itself, the problem is its position. Emmy's backpack was found on the 3rd day of searching, on a flat boulder 20 meters from the trail. Not under the slope where it would have been thrown by a fall. Not in the bushes where it would have been dragged by an animal. In a visible place, straight, with the straps up. In the report of the search party who found it, there is a phrase, "The object looked laid down, not lost." Then no one paid attention to it. Now it's the first point in the new version. The second point is the phone. A technical examination of the billing shows Emmy's device lost contact with the base station at 1:40, but the battery at that moment held more than 60% charge. The phone did not discharge and did not lose the signal in a dead zone. He was turned off manually, by a button. On the day of disappearance, in the midst of the campaign, the third point finally breaks the case. On a parallel path that day, a berry picker from Derby was working. He was interviewed only in the 3rd week. According to the protocol, closer to lunch, he heard women's voices from the side of the observation point. 2 women were shouting at each other. He didn't make out the words. He described the tone with one word: quarrel. June is summoned for a second interrogation. And here comes the 4th point. In the first interrogation, she stated, "There was no quarrel. The day passed quietly." Now, after presenting the collector's evidence, the version changes. According to the protocol, June admits, at the top they quarreled over nonsense, does not remember the details. The investigator records in the report. While changing testimony, the interrogated person clenches their fists until the bones turn white, signs the protocol on the 3rd attempt. The first 2 are torn off. The pen pierces the paper. Change of testimony plus hidden quarrel plus manually turned off phone plus put backpack. In total, this gives a formulation that the sheriff brings to a meeting with the district prosecutor. The case of disappearance is requalified. The new article reads, "Premeditated murder with concealment of the body." Hamilton learns about it from the morning news. The city that has been raising money for the search for a month is suffocating. Because the suspect in the case is one, the last person to see Emmy alive, the person who spilled champagne, went down the stairs first and changed their testimony twice. A twin sister. A face identical to the face of the missing person. The investigation is left to find the answer to one question: why? And when the investigators raise the notary archives of the district, the answer is found. A document signed 6 months before the trip. A document in which the death of one sister turns into a profit for the other. A document from the notary archive dated October, 6 months before the trip. A donation record. The grandmother of the Larson sisters rewrites the house on the shores of Lake Como to both granddaughters in equal shares. The market value of the property is over $400,000. The key point of the deal, the investigator outlines with a marker. In the event of the death of one of the heiresses, her share passes in full to the second, not to the mother, not to other relatives, to the sister. The motive, which was missing, is laid in the case as a separate volume. Further, the case is collected by June herself. Polygraph. June agrees to testing voluntarily, at the insistence of her own lawyer, who hopes to remove suspicions. The result gives the opposite effect. The polygraph examiner's conclusion: the reactions to the key questions are ambiguous. A jump in the skin galvanic reaction was recorded on the question about the fight, and a 4-second delay in breathing on the question about the location of the body. The conclusion is not evidence in court, but it is an argument for the prosecutor. Repeated interrogations multiply contradictions. June contradicts the timing of the ascent. First, she claims they were at the top at noon, then that it was closer to 1. The discrepancy is 40 minutes. The investigator records the physical state of the interrogated in the report. Sobbing in fits, with sudden stops, as if someone is cutting off the air. A slight tremor of the fingers of the right hand. 3 times during the interrogation, a request for water, holding the glass with both hands. Then social networks explode. Someone from the townspeople digs up an archived story of Emmy's from 2 years ago. A photo of June at the Harvest Festival. She's in the center of the frame, laughing. A caption made by Emmy's hand is screenshot and shared all over the county. "One day, I'll get out of your shadow." The public reads it as a pre-mortem accusation, as evidence of a long-standing feud that ended at the overlook at Bloodjet Canyon. Hamilton renders a verdict faster than the prosecution. The salesgirl at the grocery store on Main Street refuses to ring up June's purchases. The cash register jams. Neighbors who brought the family casseroles during the first week of the search cross the street. On the Larsons' mailbox, a message appears in spray paint. "Where is she?" The author of the sign didn't put a question mark. He doesn't need an answer. He needs a confession. The sister's mother stops leaving the house. According to the mailman's testimony, The curtains in the windows have not been opened for weeks. June no longer lives in the house at that time. Her boyfriend, Cole Bennett, a mechanic from Missoula, takes her in, after a film crew from a cable channel has been on duty under the Larsens' windows for the third day. On the only recording they managed to make, June walks from the door to the car in 7 seconds. Hood up, eyes on the asphalt. Shoulders are raised to the ears, as if the body is waiting for a blow. The prosecutor, meanwhile, is finishing a solitaire. The motive is an inheritance share. The opportunity is the last one seen missing. There are no witnesses. The behavior is twice changed testimony, a failed polygraph, a mess in time. There is no body, but the judicial practice of the state knows accusatory verdicts without a body. The Ravalli County prosecutor brings the case to the grand jury. The wording of the accusation is agreed upon. An arrest warrant for June Larsen is put on a judge's desk for signature. 3 days remain until the arrest, when a call comes into the county dispatcher's desk from a forest road near Lake Como. A logging truck driver reports, a woman is standing on the side of the road. A dirty jacket, scratched hands. The dispatcher asks if medical help is needed. The driver doesn't answer right away. A 4-second pause can be heard on the recording. He then utters a phrase after which the dispatcher interrupts all other calls. The woman gave her name, a recording of the Ravalli County Dispatcher's office. The truck driver transmits the woman's words from the roadside verbatim. "I'm Emmy Larsen, I'm lost." The dispatcher asks for the name 3 times, then connects the sheriff directly. The first patrol arrives on the scene in 12 minutes. The officer's report records the condition of the found. A jacket in dried mud, shoes worn out, healed scratches on the palms. The woman stands straight, doesn't waver, refuses water. She answers questions with full sentences. The pulse, measured by the paramedic, is 64 beats, a norm for an athlete. Identification takes an hour. Fingerprints match. The mole on the left clavicle is in place. The dental chart is a full match. Emmy Larsen, who had been missing for 6 months, has returned, on her own 2 feet. 3 days before her sister's arrest for her murder. The version of the lost protocol of the interrogation records it this way. On the descent, she lagged behind, left the trail behind the observation point, stumbled on the scree, fell, hit her head. She came to in the twilight without landmarks. The phone, in her words, broke when she fell. That's why it went silent. She doesn't remember the backpack at all. Probably took it off when looking for the descent. She wandered behind the ridge for several days. Then she stumbled upon an abandoned hunting hut. Inside, canned goods, a sleeping bag, a stove. She decided to spend the winter, was afraid to go blindly through the snow. In the spring she dared. She came out to the sound of logging trucks. The investigation is obliged to check. A search group with a guide follows the described route. The hut exists. The coordinates are deep behind the ridge, outside the area of last year's searches. Inside the operational group records. A sleeping bag with signs of prolonged use, empty cans, dirt on the glass and ceiling, and notches on the doorframe by which they counted the days. Over 170 marks. The photographer shoots everything frame by frame. The forensic expert notes in the report, the picture corresponds to the testimony. The explanations close each point of the indictment. The turned-off phone is a broken phone. The laid-down backpack is a removed backpack. Welding at the top, Emmy confirms. They had a fight over nonsense, so she stayed behind on the way down. Word for word, it coincides with June's second version. The county prosecutor withdraws the case from the grand jury on the same day. The arrest warrant is destroyed. The wording of the press release, the circumstances of the disappearance have been established, the criminal case has been closed. The meeting of the sisters takes place at Hamilton County Hospital. The nurse who was on duty on the floor tells journalists, June cried for an hour, not letting go of her sister. The staff offered a sedative twice. Emmy, according to the same nurse, did not cry once during the same time. She sat quietly, stroked her sister's nape, looked over her shoulder out the window. Hamilton turns around in one day. A saleswoman from Main Street, whose cash register was stuck, hands the Larsens a basket of pastries. The writing on the mailbox is painted over. The neighbors line up with pies and apologies. The cable channel that aired under the windows releases a segment called The Miracle of the Blodgett Canyon. The episode's rating breaks the channel's decade-long record. It is on this episode that something strange first happens. The editor puts two frames side by side, an archival photo of the sisters from the birthday before the trip, and a fresh sync from the hospital. The editor stops the timeline, calls the director to the screen, and asks a question that the whole country will ask itself in a week. Why does a woman who survived in the winter forest on canned food for half a year look younger on this screen than herself last year? The editor's question goes on the air as a separate story. Two frames on a split screen. On the left, Emmy a day before the trip, filmed by the early bird camera. On the right, Emmy after returning. The difference doesn't require a comment. The right side looks younger than the left. The skin is without a single wrinkle, a clear oval face, the posture of a gymnast. A dermatologist, invited by the channel as an expert, throws up his hands in a live broadcast. According to him, the state of the patient's skin after half a year in the woods corresponds to the state after half a year of professional salon care. He carefully selects an explanation. Lack of ultraviolet radiation, a simple diet, a lot of sleep. The statement sounds unconvincing even to himself. On the recording, he can be heard interrupting his own sentence twice. But the real shock comes when the camera pans out and captures the second sister, June. 27 years old, according to her passport. On the screen is a woman who looks to be pushing 40. Deep nasolabial folds, a network of wrinkles around the eyes, hair cut short with grey threads on the temples. A grey skin tone that not even studio makeup can hide. For half a year, while one sister survived in the woods, the other lived at home, in warmth, with hot food, and aged by decades. The doctors the family turns to make diagnoses by touch. The formulation from the medical chart: premature photoaging of the skin of unclear etiology against the background of chronic stress. A therapist from Missoula writes more simply: cortisol, grief, bullying, insomnia. It happens. Doctors shrug their shoulders in sync, as if on command. The media finds a formula that sells. The headline of the weekly magazine spreads across the country. The forest kept one and ate the other. Talk shows order joint airings for the sisters. Producers seat them side by side, identical twins, between whom there is now a chasm of 15 visual years. Ratings grow on the contrast of their faces alone. The main broadcast is the evening show of the national network. The recording exists in the archive, and one of its fragments will later be reviewed frame by frame. The host, summarizing the plot, utters a phrase intended as a compliment. Now, perhaps, Emmy is the beautiful one. A general plan. June nods and smiles next to her, sincerely, without a shadow. She's glad for her sister, but the director holds a second camera at this moment, a close-up of Emmy. His lips are pursed upwards, his jaw is tense, and Emmy is pressing a smile, the way you press a cough at a funeral. 3/4 of a second. Then the face is evened out. Then no one notices this frame. The broadcast continues. The sisters hold hands. Life is evened out in a few months. Emmy gets a job as a fitness studio administrator in Hamilton. Her employer praises her discipline and knowledge of the training process in an interview with a local newspaper, as if she had been doing it all her life. June returns to call in Missoula, rarely going out in public. The mother slowly opens the curtains. The family makes a joint decision. Grandma's house on Lake Como is put up for sale. Too many press come to photograph that same shore. Before the sale, the sisters agree to sort through things. The house has served as a family storage for decades. Saturday morning. Boxes, dust, old clothes. June takes her sister's winter coat in her hands, the one that has been hanging here for years. She folds it for packing, and hears something rustling inside the lining. Paper. The coat lining is torn along the seam, neatly, the width of a palm, and sewn by hand with coarse thread. June unravels the seam. Inside is a piece of paper folded 4 times, a cash receipt, a sports store in Missoula. The date of purchase is 6 days before the trip to the Blodgett Canyon. June reads the positions from top to bottom. A folding treadmill, professional series. Further, a list of cosmetics. Face concentrates, ampule serums, regenerating line masks. The total amount at the bottom of the check is equal to the monthly salary of a fitness studio administrator. June stands with a piece of paper in her hand. According to her later testimony, she read the check 4 times before she understood what had stopped her. The address does not exist. It was not in the family home. June had just repacked every room herself. It was not in Emmy's apartment. June had helped with the move after her sister's return. It was not in the hunting cabin. The contents of the cabin were published in the case materials, and it included a sleeping bag, canned goods, a stove. A folded running truck weighing almost 100 kilograms is missing from the list. Logic gives only 2 exits. The purchase was returned, or the purchase is standing somewhere. And the second question is more difficult than the first. Why does a person who is going on a 1-day hike, 6 days before it, need a running track and salon cosmetics for a monthly salary? And why sew a check for this into the lining of a jacket that hangs in a house where no one enters? June asks her sister the same evening. Not over the phone. She comes personally. The conversation will be resumed from the testimony of both. June puts the check on the kitchen table. Emmy takes it, looks, turns it over. The answer sounds even, without pauses. Bought impulsively, changed her mind, returned everything the next day. The check, in her words, was forgotten in her pocket, and into the lining it fell itself. There's a hole. The explanation is smooth. The stitch on the lining is hand-done, fresh. The thread doesn't match the factory's. But June doesn't know that yet. She knows other things. She spent 30 years looking at this face, her own face, and can read it better than any polygraph. The moment she laid the check on the table, her sister stopped breathing. She didn't gasp, didn't flinch. For 2 full sentences of conversation, Emmy's chest didn't rise once. Breathing returned with the word returned. June drives to Missoula in silence. Cole behind the wheel will testify. For 40 minutes of the road, she did not turn on the phone, sat with a check in her hand, folded it and unfolded it so many times that the paper wore out at the folds to holes. That night, June does not sleep. For the first time in a year, not from grief. At 3 in the morning, she turns on her laptop. The browser history, later deleted by experts, preserved the sequence of requests that night. First, returning goods, a store in Missoula, conditions. Second, how many years a treadmill serves. Third, the query was typed and erased, then typed again. It consists of 4 words. Substances that accelerate skin aging. In the morning, June wakes up Cole and says they need 1 person. An old man from Darby who knows the forest behind the ridge better than any map. A person who can draw a path to the cabin. June wants to see it with her own eyes. The old forester from Darby is called Harlan Witt. 40 years of walking along the ridge, 20 of them as part of the county's search parties. He knows the den. Hunters set it up even before his father, abandoned for decades. He doesn't name the coordinates. He draws them. On a sheet in a square. A fork behind the old logging road. A dry stream bed. A pass over a landslide. A fallen pine like a gate. He estimates the road to be a 5-hour walk. When asked to go with them, he refuses and responds with a phrase that Cole later quotes to the investigators. "Nobody has gone there for half a year, and in the old days. It's strange that your girl stumbled upon it at all." They leave at dawn. The route coincides with the drawing to the detail. After lunch, behind the fallen pine, a hut opens up. The same one from the photographs of the criminal case. The hut, the collapsed roof, the chimney made of river stone. Inside, everything is as in the inspection report. A sleeping bag by the stove, a stack of empty cans, soot on the only window, notches on the door frame, over 170 marks, counted by the forensic expert. June walks through the premises slowly, along the perimeter. According to Cole's testimony, she exhales for the first time that day. The picture is real. Her sister lived here. A check is a coincidence. Suspicion is a disease of a surviving mind, and now it's possible to return and learn to live on. Then Cole runs his finger over the glass. Soot seems to be fat, black, like fresh soot from yesterday's fire. A half-year-old coating dries on the glass into a dead crust. It needs to be scraped off. This one can be erased with a sleeve. Cole silently shows his finger to June. June approaches the door with notches. He looks at what no criminologist has looked at, because no one has asked such a question. The cuts of the lines are light. The tree darkens on the cut over the months. Pine becomes gray, then brown. These notches glow with fresh wood. All equally. Over 170 lines, not made in half a year, day by day, but at once, by one hand, with one knife. Decoration. Someone had hastily gathered this scene recently. A blanket, cans, a kettle from one fire, notches for one evening. Investigators last year photographed the ready pavilion, but this is not proof. June understands this even in the hut. A smudge of soot and light cuts are not an examination. The defense will crush this with one sentence. Dampness, microclimate, tree species. Something more is needed, but there is nothing more here. A search of the hut to the log does not give anything. No hair, no check, no trace. They head back late, angry and empty. And on the scree, in the twilight, they lose their markings. The dry riverbed branches out. Harlan painted one fork. There are two. They take the wrong one. In an hour it becomes clear. They are not on the route. There is half an hour of light left, and a downpour is approaching from the east. Cole is looking for shelter, a rocky overhang, uprooted roots, anything. He finds a hill. A correctly shaped hill, too even for a natural one. On the slope are embedded steel doors, an old construction, a rancher's ice cellar, of which dozens have remained in these mountains from the vanished households. The doors are not locked. The latch is unscrewed from the inside, and on the outside there is a new hook without a lock. Cole opens it. June turns on the flashlight. The beam catches a room the size of a garage. Dry, inhabited. The first thing that catches the light is a metal frame with a canvas, a running track, a neatly arranged professional series. Cole takes a photo of the shield with the item number from his phone before he realizes why. Then the beam goes along the wall, shelf, rows of empty jars, not canned. Glass from under masks and concentrates, labels match the line with the check. Nearby, water cans, a stack, the account goes to tens. Sports loops on anchors in the ceiling. Along the far wall is a floor-to-ceiling mirror, with two sconces on either side. The mirror in the cellar. It's mounted at human height, with a marker mark on the glass, a horizontal line at forehead height. June stands in the center and doesn't move. The lantern in her hand trembles slightly. The beam flickers on the walls like a strobe. Because she realized what this place is. Nobody survived here. They worked here, on schedule, for half a year. 5 hours drive from the town that was searching for the body, Cole finds the last one. On the shelf under the mirror, pressed by a jar, lies a general notebook in a hardcover. The corners are swollen from moisture. The pages are densely written to the fields. June unfolds the first one. At the top, the date, a month before the trip. The first entry in the notebook was made a month before the trip. The handwriting is even, without corrections. One line that June reads aloud only once, during the interrogation, for the record. Now let's see who will get all the attention. Further, not a diary, a plan. The pages are lined by hand in graphs, detox, drinking schemes, sorbents, scheduled by weeks. Training, running on the track, loops, statics, norms for each day, with notes on performance. Care, masks by numbers, ampules by days of the cycle. A separate column, darkness, with a count of hours without light. Accounting of provisions, accounting of water. And a separate section, more thorough than the others, is den. A list of equipment, the number of notches, a diagram of the layout of cans, the date of the sleeping bag being thrown away. The setting of the scene is described like an estimate. On the bottom shelf, wrapped in a towel, stands a champagne bottle. The same one from the top. Not fully washed, sediment remained at the bottom. Preserved. A forensic psychologist will later write in the conclusion a word that all headlines will pick up. Trophy. June and Cole don't touch anything else. They go out, fix the coordinates, call the sheriff from the first point where the signal catches. The operational group enters the basement the next morning. Further examinations work. The article of the truck coincides with the check from the lining. The banks under the cosmetics coincide with the check. The handwriting in the notebook is the handwriting of Emmy Larsen. The conclusion is categorical. Toxicology drives the final nail. A compound was found in the sediment at the bottom of the bottle. A photosensitizer that, in combination with ultraviolet light, destroys collagen and triggers a cascade of skin aging. The substance is slow-acting, cumulative. The toxicologist explains the mechanism in court calmly, without adjectives. Both sisters received the dose. They drank from the same bottle. The difference is in what happened next. June lived under Montana's sun. Every day, ultraviolet rays triggered destruction, month after month. 6 months of harassment and insomnia only accelerated the process. Emmy went down to the basement on the same day. No rays of light, a forced detox on schedule, sorbents, liters of water, skincare at the clinic level. One substance, 2 scenarios. The twin phenomenon is closed in 2 words, chemistry and darkness. The process lasts 4 months. The defense works towards a single goal, to blur intent. Proving attempted murder is impossible. The substance is non-lethal, experts confirm. Proving the intent to age is difficult. Lawyers insist that the client experimented with a cosmetic compound on herself, and the cellar is a personal space for recovery. They call the notebook a fantasy diary. The jury does not believe the defense, but the law counts not faith. The verdict: guilty of faking her disappearance, giving false testimony, and causing moderate harm to health. The sentence is suspended. The courtroom meets the verdict with silence. Then a single woman's cry from the back rows. It's not June who cries. June sits motionless, looking at her sister. Emmy doesn't turn around. The mother rewrites her will that same week. Everything to June. The house on Lake Como is being sold at a low price. Buyers are not deterred by the history, but by the buses with tourists. June moves to Missoula with Cole, changes her number, but keeps her last name. A year later, the local newspaper reports, on the anniversary of the move to the new address, June Larson received a postcard with no return address, a Hamilton postmark. On the postcard, one word, in printed letters, beauty. The next year, another one. And more. The police checked twice, no fingerprints. The last documented frame of this story is a recording from the Early Bird Cafe, made 2 years after the sentence, at 9:12 in the morning. A table by the window, the same one as in the recording from the day of the disappearance. A woman is sitting behind it, alone. Skin without a single wrinkle, a gymnast's posture, a coffee in front of her that she doesn't touch. The new waitress, the name on her badge was not in any protocol. Takes the order and, according to the testimony of a local newspaper reporter, asks the only question: "Are you the beautiful one of the twins?" There is no microphone near the table, but the camera writes the image clearly, and the woman's lips in the frame can be read without expertise. Now, so,